Welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. My name is Molly McLaughlin, and I own a company that optimizes sleep through technology, accountability, and behavioral change. Each week, I'll be interviewing world-class experts ranging from doctors, innovators, and thought leaders to give actionable tips and strategies that you can implement to become a more skillful sleeper. Let's jump into your dose of practical sleep training. Welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. My guest today is Danielle Daem, and she is a sugar freedom coach and speaker who is passionate about helping women reshape their relationship with sugar. Now, don't tune out if you're not a woman. This really does apply to everyone, but she, in her business line of work, she does double down on working specifically with women. But of course, sugar freedom applies to all of us, and how that can show up in your metrics as it relates to your sleep cannot be underestimated. I've seen this firsthand when people really mindfully take on this area, some of the difference in things like their HRV, their respiratory rate, their heart rate, other elements of their nervous system, and how things are being handled and modulated in a powerful way can really transform by virtue of what we choose to put into our bodies. And sugar cannot be ignored in this conversation. So I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. And real quick background, Dani is in a mastermind that I am in. We're just a small group mastermind with a bunch of us that run cohort programs. And so her cohort, similar to mine for sleep, is around helping to support people with their sugar relationship. So I think you're going to really enjoy her practitioner approach and what really works on the ground to ensure that people have a lasting and powerful relationship with their food. So little background on Danielle. Danielle Daem is a sugar freedom coach and speaker who is passionate about helping women reshape their relationship with sugar so they can reclaim control over their health and energy once and for all. Having struggled with sugar addiction herself, she knows exactly how difficult and overwhelming the journey can be. Using her extensive knowledge in nutrition, personal experience, and coaching, Dani helps her clients discover a new way of living in which sugar cravings and guilt no longer controls their health and life. For the past 5 years, Dani has been on her own journey with food. She's learned the power of eating real food and how building a few simple habits can drastically shift our health and life for good. She's passionate about empowering people to learn what works best in their unique body and life. Danielle is also the host of the top-rated Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast, where she dives deep into conversations about the root causes of sugar dependency and total body health and wellness. Now, let's jump into our conversation with Dani. Do know that Dani does run regular cohorts, and depending on when this is actually released or when you're listening to it, it's very likely that she'll have upcoming cohorts, or you can at least get on the wait list for openings for her future programs that you could be a part of. So I get a lot of questions around sleep supplements, and I'm very hesitant to just throw out a whole laundry list of possibilities. One, I don't think it's the most responsible thing to do. I really do believe in testing to see what types of supplements make sense for you. And two, because I really truly believe that most of the things that you can do to improve your sleep are behavioral, psychological, environmental in nature, and often don't cost a dime. However, there is one supplement that I personally take every day and that I do feel quite comfortable with suggesting for most individuals to experiment with because of a couple of reasons. Its high safety profile and high rates of deficiencies in our modern society. Some put the numbers as somewhere around 80% of the population being deficient in this one area, and that is magnesium. So magnesium has been called the calming mineral, and some report that magnesium can increase GABA, which encourages relaxation on a cellular level, which is critical for sleep. Magnesium also plays a key role in regulating our body's stress response system. Those with magnesium deficiency usually have higher anxiety and stress levels, which negatively impact sleep as well. Now, before you go out and buy a magnesium supplement, it's important to understand that most magnesium products out there are either synthetic or they only have 1 to 2 forms of magnesium, when in reality, your body needs all 7 forms of this essential sleep mineral. So that's why I recommend a product from my friends over at BioOptimizers. They have created something called the Magnesium Breakthrough. And taking this magnesium before bed helps you relax and wake up refreshed and energized. And while we don't recommend that you go too nuts on looking at all the sleep stage classifications on all your wearables, I will share anecdotally that many clients have reported improvements in their deep sleep trend numbers. Again, I don't want you going nuts on the sleep stage classification numbers on your wearables, but I do want to let you know about that because I know that many of you do reach out on questions of how to improve your deep sleep. So I also love that BioOptimizers offers free shipping on select orders, and they offer a 365-day money-back guarantee on all their products. Plus, they have a customer satisfaction rating of 99.3%. Very impressive. And you can get 10% off Magnesium Breakthrough. Again, this is the same magnesium that I use every single night. And finally, you can get 10% off Magnesium Breakthrough. Again, that's the magnesium supplement that I use every single night by going to magbreakthrough.com/sleep is a skill. And be sure to use the code sleep is a skill for 10% off. And welcome to the Sleep is a Skill podcast. I am so excited to have a dear friend who I have yet to actually meet in real human life, but I have really created like a strong relationship with you virtually, thanks to just mutual other friends that we've created this great partnership and group together. So I've gotten to see your commitment for health and well-being and helping and making a difference with so many people. So I am so excited to have you on the podcast today. So thank you for joining.
Yay. Thanks for having me here, Molly. I'm so excited to have this chat with you. I know you came on my podcast a couple of months ago, and I'm excited here to talk to your audience today and continue the conversation.
Yes. This is an important conversation. And especially I think the way that you approach this conversation, and, we might go into a couple different paths today, but certainly on this topic of sugar and what does that have to do with sleep, sugar and sleep? How are they connected? And I'm hoping you can help kind of bridge that kind of question or two topics. And certainly I've seen it in the work I've done with individuals. Everyone that we're working with, again, is wearing the Oura Ring. So we'll see when people make dramatic shifts or clear shifts in their diet, one of them being sugar, then we often see really measurable changes in their health and well-being, including lowering of heart rate, respiratory rate, often improvements in HRV and other things. Naturally, it's bio-individual for the degree of change, but a measurable change often, and then certainly a subjective change in addition to the objective change. So how did you get into this? Tell us all the things and help us connect the sleep and sugar piece.
Yeah, my sugar story.
Yes.
Today. I love that question because it is so profound. And I know that you, like your area of expertise, and I know you've had some of our other guests, like our dear mutual friend, Danielle Hamilton, probably come on and speak more to the science behind sugar and sleep. Yeah. And there's so many pieces, right? But ultimately, going back in my journey, when I look back, my whole life, I've been a sugar junkie and a totally lover of sugar. And it's been a huge part of my upbringing and my life. It's a part of our culture, society, like wherever you live, sugar is everywhere, right? So I was no different. We use sugar all the time for everything in my household growing up. And it wasn't until I, flew the coop and I went to university and then I went into the workforce that I started, paying more attention to what my body looked like and how I felt as a woman, right? I don't want to gain weight. And I was getting to the point where, I was not able to really out exercise and I was starting to get really exhausted and tired all day. And it was years later that I figured out what was going on and understanding the actual connection between what I put in my body and how I feel, and also the possibilities of disease development in my future. And all these things really started tying together. And the biggest catalyst for me that really just started sparking a series of light bulb moments was when my husband and I were on a year-long journey in South America. We went traveling, we quit our jobs, huge, big first leap of faith. And it was the best thing I've ever done in my life because looking back, that job that I was in was actually the rock bottom of my emotional eating and definite sleep problems and energy problems and mental health problems. And it was just a perfect storm of being absolutely miserable with my life and eating my way through it. So this trip that we took really started opening my eyes to how people relate with food in other countries and how people actually cook their own meals. It was mind blowing. Like, what?
Yeah.
why would you be in the kitchen cooking your own meal when you can just go out and get McDonald's, right? Like, what are you doing? People would go to the market. They knew where their food came from. They were more connected with ingredients and actually using whole real foods to make. And for them, a lot of it is necessity because it's cheaper to buy whole real foods, right? We have it backwards here in North America. But that really started sparking things for me and really starting to connect more with the land and with actually being curious about how food is grown and where food comes from. And, you go to these big markets in South America and the meat section is literally just like big carcasses of cows and pigs like hanging over a counter in the middle of this warehouse covered in flies. And you're like, oh, so that's what meat looks like. It's not in this little styrofoam package. So I just started kind of understanding what real food looks like. And it was on that trip that we ate like starving traveling students for, even though we weren't students, but I say that, for like a good 9 months, eating nothing but like white bread and junk food and cakes and cookies, like things that didn't need a fridge, right? All the junk. And we were really starting to get bogged down. And luckily at the very end of that journey, we ended up living actually at a yoga center in the middle of the Colombian jungle. And we were an hour away from any town. We were literally in the middle of the jungle. So we were living off the land. And in that, you don't have packaged processed food. So we went through what I call our accidental sugar detox. So we had no idea what was going on, but we were eating whole real foods and our body was like freaking out. What's going on? Where's my packaged crap, right? I want the processed food.
Yeah.
So even though we were having mangoes and fruit juice, but it was all off the land and it was a really beautiful experience. And at the same time, I got really sick. We just felt like crap. We were low on energy and I couldn't sleep. I was hungry at weird times. My hunger signals were all wonky. I was having digestive problems, all the things that happen when we detox from toxic food. I didn't know it at the time. And that really sparked for me when I came home. I really started noticing that my sugar cravings weren't there anymore as much, that I didn't actually want the things that I thought I wanted when I got home. And I really just started having those light bulb moments like, wait a second, like sugar was something I was addicted to. And it was actually controlling my decisions around food and thus controlling the future of my health and the life that I want to live. And I just started having all of these really big life altering shifts in noticing how I wasn't nourishing myself. And I wanted to change that. So I went on a journey to do that. And that's kind of where it started I think it's over 6 years ago now when we came home from that trip back to Canada, started cleaning up our diet. We actually went vegetarian for a while because, well, that was the thing to do back then. Yeah. I now eat meat because it's better for my blood sugar and my whole body. So that really just spurred it. And I became really passionate I started studying nutrition at that point and getting into helping women make healthy changes easily. And I've really continued to dive deeper and deeper, layer by layer every year in understanding our root drivers that are keeping us hooked on processed food and junk food. And really helping women heal from the inside out with that and creating that sense of a peaceful and easeful relationship with food. And it's not just sugar, it's food in general, right? We all have a complicated relationship with it. And we need to start peeling back the layers and uncovering what's really going on and heal from the inside out with that. So in that, I know, tying this with sleep, sugar is such a huge culprit when it comes to sleep. And when I'm talking about sugar, I'm talking here about like processed flours, any added sugar, whether it's organic or not, it's still sugar, maple syrup or cane sugar and this is also like cakes and pastries, right? The white processed flours and really high sugar fruits. Those are the 3 categories that I really have my clients take out when we do just the basic detox from sugar. So those are kind of the big culprits that are really, when we ingest them, hitting our blood sugar in a hard way, right? Immediately getting soaked into our bloodstream, causing insulin to be released, spiking our blood sugar, spiking our insulin response, and just wreaking havoc on all the systems in the body, including our hormones that we need to sleep, right? Yeah. That we need to come down when we sleep. I mean, how many of us have, maybe listening, you've experienced a sugar high before, right? Have you ever experienced a sugar high, Molly? Right?
Oh, you're like, for sure.
I have all this energy and I feel amazing. And then what happens?
Crash.
Like a half an hour, hour later, you're like, I'm done. So you can imagine how that affects your sleep, right? Especially, for many women that I know, late night snacking, right? There's that after dinner eating, the eating really close to bed that's causing that huge spike and that huge crash that, continues through the night as you're sleeping. And I know you have more stats and data on this than I do, Molly, using the Aura Ring and studying people's charts. But I know like the effect that has, especially starting in the morning, right? With breakfast, you're having your big hit of sugar for breakfast, and then you're having it for lunch, and then you're having a coffee and a muffin, and then you're having dessert. And you're just on this blood sugar roller coaster all day that is absolutely throwing off all of your sleep hormones and your ability to actually stay asleep and to have deep sleep and to wake up feeling rested and just all the things in between that, right? So there's so many reasons why, what we eat really affect the quality of our sleep. And if we want to be feeling rested, to be optimal, I mean, obviously you're all here listening to this podcast, this amazing, show that you put together, Molly, because sleep is such a foundation of health that so many people forget about. It is the time in the day when we literally reboot all of our systems, right? And we clear out emotional baggage and toxins from our body and all the stuff. So if we don't actually really prioritize that and know all the factors that are contributing to possibly poor sleep, as we age, it's just going to get worse and worse, right? And we're going to age quicker. We're going to develop disease faster. We're just going to feel like crap and not be able to do the things we want to do. And, this is obviously you all don't need me to tell you how important sleep is.
Yes,
That's your
yes,
job,
sure.
but there's a big connection.
Yeah. So then in this conversation, if listeners are taking on this possibility of, okay, fine. So yes, sugar and eliminating or lowering it might help support my sleep results. What do you see come up that gets in the way of people just fulfilling on that? Like, what are all the things that we might see that are kind of pitfalls or things to be aware of and potential tools that we might be able to utilize to make a difference with that? If people are curious about, oh yeah, well, if I was to lower the amount of, also, I love how you painted the picture of, it's not just like traditional sugar. I think when people sometimes hear sugar, they think pictures of white sugar granules, when really just so many of those insidious things that we might not consider. We might think are a healthy option of the bread basket, the this, the that. And so the fact that all turns into sugar. So really looking at this holistically, looking at our ingredients, whole foods. So why don't we all just do this? What are the things that come up and how can we support a new action?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. There's like 5 questions in there. I'm going to do my best to answer that.
I have a tendency of doing that, by the way.
I'm gonna nail it. Don't worry. I'm gonna cover all of them. I've got them. So really good.
The questions in one. Go.
That's the last thing you're gonna say. I'm doing the rest of the talking.
Okay. Bye.
No, really important questions though, because they do all tie together, and this is all like part of the conversation. So the reason why this is so hard to give up, there's a few reasons, and it's really important for everybody listening to understand that, first of all, this isn't your fault. There are a lot of reasons that have been beyond our control that have started at childhood that are keeping us hooked on sugar in a really, really hard way. And it breaks my heart, every woman that I come in contact with and all of my clients coming to me with this totally deflated, having spent decades on diet after diet and starting to come to this conclusion, like, I must be broken. There must be something wrong with me because I can't get this figured out, right? I keep trying to get off sugar and I keep binging again and again. And there must be something, a piece in me that God forgot to put in there, right? That like, I'm broken. And that just totally breaks my heart apart because it's so not true. Right? There's many factors that are really against us when it comes to clean eating, right? Like we know what to do. We know how to eat whole real foods and hopefully listen to our body about what works and what doesn't. And, we got to hydrate and we got to sleep and move our body. Like we know what to do, but it's that, why aren't we actually doing it piece that I love that you asked that, Molly, because it can be really eye-opening. So in the scope of sugar, having this awareness for you around what are the biggest factors keeping you hooked is a really important place to start on your whole journey. This is before even trying to give up sugar, before any of that, really having an understanding and awareness, a deep awareness of what biggest culprits are holding you back. So some of the biggest areas, and this isn't all of them, but these are the biggest ones that I see. Number one, and I kind of split these into 2 categories. So there's the physical, and then there's the mental, emotional, energetic pieces. Okay. So physically, we're working against a lot because our brain just loves sugar. Our gut loves sugar. So when we're eating it, we're getting that hit in our brain. The dopamine centers are like, yes, party, give me more, give me more, give me more. Our gut bacteria is growing and taking over and calling, feed me more sugar. So we really are in this place where most of us have been overdosing on sugar, whether intentionally or accidentally, for our whole lives. And very real, these physical responses and these cellular pieces that are showing up for us is really difficult. It's difficult, right? We've got all of these different voices and all the cells in our body yelling, eat the cookie. So we need to acknowledge like that's a very real challenge, right? And it's a big part why so many have a challenge in getting off sugar. In that as well, there's a lot of us out there, and I was one of these as well, that just literally had no idea how to eat without sugar. Like it had never been off my plate. Like, how do I make a meal that doesn't include white pasta and bread? Like, what are you, crazy?
Yeah.
Right. So how do I actually eat? And that could be a big stumbling block for a lot of people, actually learning how to cook, right? Learning how to combine whole real food ingredients and make your own meal, make it taste good with spices and different things. So that's a really big factor as well that I think a lot of people forget, that there's those pieces kind of working against us. And on the other side of things, right, we have this huge societal pressure. Huge. Sugar is everywhere. It's in everything. It's at every occasion. It's how you relate with people. It's how you show love with people. It's how you celebrate things. You can't get through Christmas without sugar, or a birthday without sugar, or a Friday night without sugar. It is so ingrained in the habits and the culture of our society in North America and Europe, in a lot of westernized cultures, and I think most countries around the world, right? They have their own versions of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's everywhere, right? Sugar is love, sugar is connection and comfort. And it has all of these deep meanings that, on a societal platform, make it really difficult to get off, right? We're fighting against the green when we decide, or you decide, to stop eating sugar, or to start eating healthy, right? Or to start prioritizing your sleep. Like I'm the one at the party, and I know you and I have joked about that. Like I'm out of there at 9:00 because I'm going to bed. Like, bye.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad that you're speaking about that. I was thinking that as you were saying this, the cultural, societal piece is that I really look to you as a leader in this area of being able to create workable boundaries for yourself, but in a graceful way, which is, I think, forever a bit of an art form for many of us. Certainly this applies for, to your point, bridging it to sleep, seeing how to, set something and prioritize an area of your life and do it no matter what other people are doing. We talk about sleep leadership in our kind of courses and what have you, and kind of that personal responsibility and accountability. And it sounds like you're finding that and creating that for people with sugar, and how to not think of yourself as like the weirdo that's opting out of the fun ritual, or, Nana made the cookies for Christmas or whatever. And how do we, kind of navigate those social issues? And so do you feel like this can be trained and learned, or is it just like an innate gift that some people have? What's there?
Yeah, I love that. Both. I think it does. Like, I do feel like when you ask me that question and I think about myself, I feel like there is a lot of my personality that does support that. Like I'm okay being the black sheep.
Sure.
Like I'm in a way. And at the same time, I still have that primitive part of me that needs to be liked, right? And wants to people please and wants to be a part of the group. And so I've got kind of both going on, but I've, in the healing work that I've done in my life and with food over the last 6 years, I've gotten so much more confident in who I am and what's important to me. And more, like, other people's opinions don't bother me. And that really helps, right? We do have to kind of be willing to be a bit of a rebel. And I know a lot of you out there who may be introverts or really struggle with that. Like, it is a journey, right? And it's one step after another, and learning to set those boundaries, and ultimately taking a hard look at where you're people pleasing in your life, understanding that it is a biological survival mechanism to have people like you, and starting to find proof and starting to change those neural pathways in your brain so that you can understand that, your worth and your value don't matter what other people think of you, right? I love that saying. And I use this, and I remind myself of this mantra when I get a nasty comment online, or these things come up, right? Is other people's opinion of me is none of my business. I love that saying. And I forget who originally said that, but it's not me, but it's so good, right? Like, other people's opinion of me is none of my business. So when you start getting into this and navigating the tricky social situations, you do have to arm yourself, and you absolutely can train yourself. I have a lot of these conversations with my clients, like the words that we can use, the boundaries we can set, the physical places we can set ourselves up with, the people we can avoid while we're not strong enough to hang out with them, right? If you have someone in your life that is a major cookie pusher, if it's grandma, right? Maybe you need to only hang out with grandma on Zoom for a couple of weeks, right? Or like that might not work. But there are certain people, like maybe it's a friend. You could say, I'm just really busy this month. Maybe you're like going through getting strong with getting off sugar, right? Or going through a detox, and you know that you just can't handle the extra temptation. It's okay to set that boundary of not being with those people for a month, or whatever you need. So if they're not going to support you, obviously there's conversations you need to have. There's a lot of nuances, and it's very individual specific, but we can absolutely learn a lot of those skills. And I think it becomes so much easier over time. The more you become committed to your health journey, whether it's setting those boundaries with sleep or with food and sugar or in other areas of your life, it just becomes easier and easier. Right. And the people around you learn to respect that. Right. And if they don't, goodbye. Right. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I love you. Goodbye. Yeah. But like, if they don't, right. I mean, it really does help you. And this is kind of a side tangent, but it's really helped me understand who are actually there to show up for me in my life, who actually wants me to succeed and who doesn't. Yeah. And I've had to make some hard cuts, right, with some people that are no longer serving me. And, that sounds brutal, but it was such an act of self-love. And it was not done viciously or meanly. It was just a natural shift to have people who get it and support me and are okay when I leave and go to bed at 9:00, right, at the party, or I don't eat the cookie. They're not going to force me to, and they're going to respect that. So, having those people is really, really important.
Absolutely. And I like that you also speak to it too, in that there might be a muscle building period of time for ourselves where it's not to say that it has to necessarily be forever, maybe not cutting Nana out of the
no.
Cutting her out forever, but just for a little period of time, taking that time for ourselves until we get stronger, until we build that muscle just a bit. That could be a potential path for people to explore in many areas from a human behavior perspective. I think that we think of that as being very normal when it comes to, say, alcoholism, and taking some time you wouldn't necessarily go into a bar when you are just starting out with a 12-step program or what have you. There's certain things that just sort of make sense. And I think we could be really putting this in the realm of life design and really designing our life in a way that fits for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to come back to like the earlier question, because there was one other thing that I really wanted to highlight there that's really important.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm coming back. I told you I wasn't going to forget your questions. So the other really big piece that I saved this for last because I think it's the biggest and the most important, that's really causing us to have a hard time, kicking sugar and staying off sugar, is the emotional mental pieces.
Yeah.
So this is what I just blanket statement, this is the inner work. But what I've seen with my clients is this is the biggest area that everybody avoids because it's difficult and it takes time and it's painful, but we must begin to look at the innermost workings and patterns of our subconscious in terms of why we're actually using food. Because the physical piece that I talked about is a very real challenge, very real. But when we get sugar out of our body, we start to notice that's not the only reason we're addicted to sugar, or we're hooked on sugar, or we're late night snacking. It's actually, in my opinion, a very small piece. And this is why so many women that I work with, and I don't know if you've had this experience or anyone that you've worked with, Molly, is, they'll go off sugar, eat clean, right? Go on a cleanse or a diet for 30 days or 60 days. Yeah. And then they're feeling great. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be amazing forever. And my health is turned around and I'm sleeping amazing. And then something happens, right? They lose their job, or a pandemic hits, or it's Friday night and there's a cookie, and then there's a box of cookies. And then before you know it, you're binging again and you're feeling so ashamed of yourself and you're just back in the hole. So there's this yo-yoing that went on. And what I've identified is it's because most people completely ignore actually uncovering the root causes. So the biggest ones there being emotional, and I'd say our belief systems as well. A lot of people believe, and how we actually view ourselves. So a lot of us have this identity of, I'm lazy, or I'm just an unhealthy eater, or we have these sort of labels that we've put on ourselves that don't support long-term health. So we actually have to go in and rewire like the way we think about ourselves and the way that we believe, right? Do we believe eating healthy is boring, right? Do we believe that cooking is a waste of time? A lot of my clients have that one, right? Or that expressing emotions is is not safe. And we have to relearn, or even just learn, because we've never been taught the tools to actually manage our emotions. Because I think most of us, especially us women, 99% of the time, we're reaching for food for an emotional reason, whether it's to celebrate or to comfort. And really starting to get clear on those patterns for yourself and where they're coming from are absolutely key. And these are some of the biggest challenges. Like coming back to that first question, this is, I'd say, the biggest challenge is the really emotional, mental pieces that are at the root of calling us to eat sugar and calling us when something difficult happens, because we're human beings living a human existence and difficult things happen all the time. And if we don't accept that and ride the wave and learn the tools to ride the wave, we're always going to find ourselves, face deep in a bowl of ice cream or cookies, right? And then back in that old cycle again. So getting off of that cycle and actually creating a lifestyle change, whether it's with sleep or with sugar or with food. I mean, we have to start looking at some of those, like those deeper pieces, right? The beliefs about ourselves, right? Oh, I'm a lame human being if I go to bed, if I leave the party at 9 and no one's going to like me, right? Like if those beliefs are really there, you're not going to be leaving the party. You're going to force yourself to stay till midnight, and then you're going to have a crappy sleep and then regret it in the morning. So we can do a lot with our mind and our emotions. And I think that's really important to say. There's obviously so much in that, but that's just the quick planting of the seed for all of you to notice that that's obviously working against us as well, and why it can be so difficult to get off the stuff.
Yeah, well, actually, I think to go deeper on that, and I think also enlighten us onto how you're managing this from someone that has been to those lows with your sleep and now has really gained this level of mastery in this area. So we ask each person 4 questions, and I think it really goes into this topic of the psychological piece, because the first question is, what does your nightly sleep routine look like? And I'd also like to have that asterisk for you of, what does that look like as it relates to food? Because we have so many people that are struggling with nighttime eating, or they start snacking, or maybe their food, their main meal was one that had the highs and then the crash, and now they're ravenous. And so a lot of that cycle then seems to feed into their ability to both fall asleep with ease and stay asleep. So just curious if in your nightly routine, we might see the element around sugar or how you're managing that, so that we can learn something there too.
Yeah. That's such a good question. I absolutely love that. And I'll be like full disclosure honest.
Yeah.
I am like all over the map with my night routine. All over the map.
Experimentation galore. All right. What do we got?
Yes. And you know what? It's taken me a lot of time to be okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm someone who does need that flexibility and flow.
Sure.
But for the most part, I'm going to bed like between 9 and 10. That's my optimal time. Walking back from that, I love reading in bed. My husband and I do work at, and we're not perfect at this, shutting the TV off, shutting the screens off. I definitely don't work in the evenings, unless it's like something huge. I've hit that boundary I think I was forced to hit that boundary because my brain kind of shuts off at 5. So I shut off at 5.
Yeah.
But the Netflix comes in. So sometimes we will watch a movie and then we'll like do our wind down, brush our teeth. We have red light bulbs on our nightstands, which is an awesome support, and just like dimming the lights at night. And then in terms of food, again, I'm not perfect. And this is really important. And I want to speak really candidly here, because so many women might see me or hear experts talking about this thinking, well, they've just got it all figured out and they're totally perfect in all of their routines. And I think that level of perfectionism is actually not supporting any of us, because we're human beings. And I still sometimes late night snack, emotional eat, like sometimes that comes up for me. But for the most part, I don't eat after dinner. I dabble with like intermittent fasting. So depending on the day of the week, my last meal might be at 3, or it might be at 6 or 7, like regular meal time. And then I don't eat anything after that. And, my meals are for the most part, nourishing, healthy, protein, fats, some complex carbohydrates and good stuff. So that's usually like my cutoff time, depending on the day and my schedule. Sometimes I'm booked up until 5 and I can't eat before that. So that kind of varies on the day of the week. And then my evenings, I strive to, sometimes we'll go out for a walk now that when the weather's nice, or read a book, or, go and hang out with friends. We also, I forgot about this because this is a big part. If you ask me this in like a month, this would be top of mind in my evening routine is our sauna. So because it's been the summer, I've completely forgotten about it because we're not really using it.
Yeah.
It's so hot that I'm like, I don't want to go in the sauna. But last year we bought a wood burning barrel cedar sauna that we have outside.
Amazing.
It is like been the best investment for my soul, for my body, for everything. And that's really a big part of our night routine. We'll go spend like a good hour in there, sometimes a little bit too long.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, here comes the headache. I'm like pounding electrolytes, but still. So we've got the sauna and the cold plunge situation that is a big part of our like fall, winter, spring routine when it's not 30 degrees out. And that like really sets up for a good sleep, except for the fact that I hydrate so much after that I wake up to have to pee.
Yes.
So
it can be a dance to get that straight. And one, I really appreciate you kind of presenting this humanity aspect on there is variability, and anyone that says, oh, well, I do this and that and exactly at this time is likely omitting things or just maybe not being honest to themselves. So I do think that's super important to share that life is dynamic. And even if you're looking from an ancestral perspective, there was meant to be this variety in the seasons. And to your point around, you do a few different things in the summer than you do in the winter. And maybe the timing is a little bit different because the sun's out later and all the things. There's a lot of variety there. So being able to be one that can shift in alignment with those things and make all of that workable and work in their favor is fantastic. So appreciate that. And then what might we see in your morning routine, and how would that kind of potentially lead into our sleep results?
Yeah, of course. So again, my mornings are all over the place. But you know what? It really does seasonally change, right? And emotionally change. Like I'm going through some difficult things this week at the time of recording, and my mornings have just been really scattered because I've just been emotionally dealing with stuff. So, but usually my mornings, and I've gotten really good at this, like my first hour or two are for me. So I'm not diving in. I'm not checking my phone right away. Again, not perfect at that. There are definitely days when I do that and I'm like, oh, darn, that's why I don't do that, because it's not a really good place to start. So I do really, need to start the day with me and my thoughts, myself. So it'll vary, I'll meditate. Lately in the spring and summer, I've really just loved going outside barefoot and standing in my garden every morning. And I just sometimes I'll bring my cat with me and we'll just like hang out in the garden. And I always have a good liter of water, warm lemon water in the morning. I pound that. That's like the first thing I do when I get up. Drink that, get outside, get the light in my eyes, right? Which we know is so important to set us up for good sleep, right? Yes. Waking my body up. And then I'll do usually some sort of movement, whether it's a walk or some yoga, or like this morning, I went for a run in the park nearby and went for a swim in the river. So I'll just engage in nature and be with myself, move my body, wake up my body in that way. And then I'll have breakfast. And then I'll go from there. A blood sugar balancing breakfast full of protein and usually eggs, avocado. Like that's my go-to. That's kind of the gist of it in the morning. And in the winter, I'll be more like here in my office. I have my altar here. I'll meditate, do yoga. And it's really hard to get out when it's raining and freezing cold and dark in the winter.
Sure.
So
yeah. Okay, got it. Well, one, I love that connection to nature and getting in the river and all those things. That's fantastic to hear. And love that you're getting that sunlight too. So all of those really are great. And to your point around the changes in the season and kind of setting up life to support those differences in a powerful way. So that's really fantastic. And what might we see in your environment? So you're on your nightstand or even proverbial nightstand with apps or gadgets or ambiance, anything there?
Yeah, the ambiance, candlelight chandeliers. I love candles. I actually do. Same. I did bring out my candle again. So actually, I do have a candle on my nightstand currently. I brought that out a couple days ago because I love, like we have our red light bulbs in our nightstands. And sometimes I just want a little bit extra, like brightness to read my book. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, how old are my eyes? Like I can't see this. Yes. I'll turn the candle on. So I have that. I also, and I'm so not using this, but it's on my nightstand. I have one of those signal blocking bags to put my phone in.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So I do use my phone for an alarm. And I turn it on airplane. I actually hate having my phone in the bedroom. I don't think it should be in the bedroom, but I haven't figured out another solution yet. So I got that bag, and maybe this conversation will inspire me to use it again. I don't know. I'm just being lazy, but it's on my nightstand. I also have a couple books that, I'm working through. I have like my lip chap, for, keeping hydrated in the night. And then, we've got like blackout curtains. I have my night mask as well, because here in the like spring and summer, it's often light when I go to bed and light when I wake up. So I need the night mask just to keep it extra dark. And, we've also put in some effort to have like, nice sheets. Last year, I bought organic cotton sheets. It was like such a frivolous expense, but so important.
Yeah.
And I love them. Like, I just feel like, oh, there's no chemicals seeping into me as I sleep. So that's really nice. And then obviously with the seasonal change, we've changed up our blankets, right? We don't want to be too hot while we sleep. I cannot be too hot while I sleep.
Same.
So, we have lighter blankets on now in the summer, now that it's summer, and really just try to keep the room cool, keep it dark, and do the best that we can, with those things. Yeah.
So in that, what would you say out of all these things that you've explored, both certainly with sugar and your meal timing and all of these things, as it then relates to sleep, what would you say has made the biggest change in your sleep game, or maybe biggest aha moment? I didn't mean to make that a leading question. It doesn't necessarily have to involve sugar. Do you see anything that really stands out for you of really making the difference with your sleep management?
Yeah, well, I guess it has to be sugar. No,
I know. I kind of at first was setting it up like that, and I didn't mean for you to feel like I guess
that
I
is
got
a big one. Yeah, that is a big one. And there's actually a couple. Can I share a couple?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a couple. So for sure it was like the late night snacking, the sugar, the ice cream, the treats, the snacks at late at night, getting rid of those because my body, I didn't need them. I don't need food after dinner. If you're eating actual nutrients, you don't actually need food. There's something else going on there. So once I started working through emotional eating and all those pieces and not eating after dinner, that really made a huge difference. Not hydrating too close to bed as well, right? Like when we sauna, we do this and it just like, I wake up to pee and that's not the best. Yeah. It's not the end of the world. I can get back to sleep really easily. So it's all good. And then, I would also, with that alcohol too, we have to talk about alcohol here, right? Because that's also sugar.
Which turns into sugar. Yes. Especially our wine
and I know you've had people on talking about alcohol and how that affects our sleep, and especially drinking too close to bed. So things like coffee and alcohol, cutting those off. I'm a big fan of day drinking because morning mimosas, right? Because your body actually has time to manage those before sleep. So you heard it here. You have permission to have a mimosa if you're going to have a drink. But make the orange juice yourself so that it's not loaded with extra sugar.
Amazing.
So those things, just paying attention, right? To, I don't drink coffee late in the afternoon. Like I have my coffee in the morning and those sorts of things made a really big difference. And then the last thing that, and I'd say this is even more important than the sugar and food for me, was the mental support that I gave myself to fall asleep and to stay asleep, was actually at the end of every workday, I always, always, always plan my next day in advance. Like I cannot shut off. It not only helps me shut off, and turn off work and be more present in the evening, to be with friends or family or, myself, but it also helps me sleep, right? A lot of times for me, it was really like laying there thinking about all the things I need to do tomorrow or that I might be forgetting. So the habit that I've gotten into of like really planning, like I'll write down the appointments I have, my to-do lists, like what are the things that I need to get done tomorrow? And then I find for me, I can just turn my brain off and sleep, right? So that's been a big one because I would lay there and ruminate or wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh no, I'm forgetting something important. So that just never happens. I can really let that go and trust that I can get up in the morning. I know what time I need to get up to make my first call and give myself the time that I need. And it just has helped me rest so much easier.
So great. And I know you're a big proponent of inbox zero, that you've been doing that for quite some time, right? I mean, these things, and I'm not meaning to kind of overly simplify things for the listener. It's not as if like when we're talking about improving our sleep, I'm not trying to say that having inbox zero or not having inbox zero is going to make the difference with your sleep. And yet I think it's all in that same world of what you're speaking to, which is that sense of having things handled and workability in your life. And the more open loops that we have that are mounting, those can certainly find their way insidiously into our peace of mind to be able to fall asleep. So it seems like you've gained some mastery in that area from my understanding.
Mastery plus, a little bit.
Yes.
Work in progress. So true how those things, for me, I really notice, and everybody's different, of course. Yeah. I really noticed that those loose ends and those things weighed so much on me and caused me so much stress and worry and anxiety. And then I'm riddled with these like heavy emotions. And then I want to just binge on, wine and ice cream.
Yeah.
And then, I'm laying there awake because I'm on the sugar high and I'm ruminating over, oh my gosh, all the emails that I am late on responding to. And so just like this total like cycle that we can get into that, obviously it takes a lot of time and practice to really set up, right? Those boundaries and those practices. And again, I'm not perfect. No, my inbox is not always at zero, but usually at the end of the day, there's no more than 10 emails there and they've all been read and dealt with. I'm just waiting for things. It's just my system, right? But we all have a different system. And I know people who have, like my sister-in-law, you look at her phone, she's got the little red like notification. She has over like 4,000 unread emails. And I look at that and I have like a panic attack. And
I know.
She can care less.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother her at all. So I know there are people who don't get caught up in that, right? But I'm not that person.
Yeah, same. No, I feel you. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm sure that people listening are resonating with what you're sharing. And also just that I'm left with that piece of your ability to have that sense of humanity, that we all have the ups and the downs and not making us bad or wrong in these different things, and kind of giving that support for people on their journey. So I'm sure people are going to want to know, how can they follow you? What are the things that are going on in your world? And if they are really struggling, how could they work with you?
Yeah, I love it. I would love to hear from everybody. I just want to keep talking about this stuff forever.
Yes.
I would love to connect with you. So actually this September, I'm hosting a really awesome free 3-day live training called the Sugar Freedom Bootcamp, where I'm going to be diving in really deep into my unique strategy and the 3 pillars that I use to actually help women break free from the cravings and this addiction and desire to use food. And we're going to dive into some of the deeper pieces and help you heal through that. So definitely come and get registered for that. You can find the link on my website or maybe in the show notes below. I think Molly has a link as well to come and register. And of course, you can find some other free resources and downloads and information about how to work with me on my website, which is danielledaem.com. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm even on TikTok. You can find me at Danielle Daem over there and come check out some of the fun things I'm creating. I've got lots of fun things in store that I'm sharing over there this September, and would love to have you come and join me and connect.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know when you do kind of multi-day trainings like this and you put together your group programs, I know you as someone that does not just kind of wing things. I know you prepare and you put things in place well in advance. So thank you for taking the time to be on here today to discuss more about these topics and how they relate to sleep. So thank you so much. And for the work that you're doing out in the world, really, really just acknowledge you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, behind the scenes, I've been working for like months at planning this upcoming training. It's going to be incredible.
There are so many people that put together, courses and programs. And I know it's kind of just like, let's just sell it before we even think about what we're putting in. And people do these things. And you are not one of those people. So really hat tip to you and all the work that I know you put in and making sure that it's a great experience for people.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I did forget to mention this too, and a huge shout out to all of your listeners to come and listen to you over on my podcast.
Yeah.
So the Beyond Sugar Freedom podcast, you can definitely come and like soak in some more of what I'm talking about here over there if you're wanting to dive in a bit deeper and listen to Molly's episode. I can't remember the episode number, but it's there. It was a couple months ago. It was amazing.
Totally. Yes. Oh, we had a great time. Amazing. Well, more to come. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, and just appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Sleep is a Skill podcast, the #1 podcast for people who want to take their sleep skills to the next level. Every Monday, I send out something that I call Molly's Monday Obsessions, containing everything that I'm obsessing over in the world of sleep. Head on over to sleepisaskill.com to sign up.